This is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focused on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey. In diaspora. Current affairs. Reliable information. History. Talking about culture. Politics. Education. Entertainment. Business. Sports. Advertisement. Articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
A warm welcome to Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition, we're going to be looking at some current issues making headlines in our country, some call it our common patrimony. One, ALCOP, that's a political party, they call on President Bouaka to declare Abraham Day as a national holiday through an executive order. ALCOP is also saying the promises you made to us when we joined the coalition, like jobs, the promises are not coming. What's happening? Also, CMC, better known as Musa Berete's party, they are calling on, they call our Unity Party officials that are running campaign in the senatorial by-elections in Nimba. They said what you are doing is a violation of the code of conduct. Because if you throw your support behind one candidate and campaigning, that is against the code of conduct. That's Code of Conduct section 5.1. Well, we also saw that the guy with the party mouth, Prophet Key, was sent to prison. Why? Because when he submitted his documents to run for Senate in the by-election in Nimba, accordingly, his documents were forged. So he was disqualified. Later, he was called by the police for investigation and sent to prison for fraud. But wait now, what's about Doug Cooper, who graduated without going to school and was investigated and found guilty of fraud? What happened to him? And if we have time, CDC said, thank you, but we don't need your salary. CDC rejects the Liberia National Police apology. During their due payment rally, there was heavy police presence. After that, they found out that what we did really was not necessary. So CDC, sorry. CDC say that you 1 year on it. We don't have a problem with it at your business. Let me welcome from the nation's capital, Jimmy Eastman, to discuss this issue with me. Jimmy, welcome to Focus on Liberia. On mute, please.
John, thank you for inviting me here. It's always good that we can discuss matters concerning our nation and how we can improve what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me also welcome the guy, better known as the Empowerment Square guy with the library in Liberia, Leo Lekpele Nupulu Johnson. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. Greetings from Hamilton, Canada. And it's great to be back on Focus on Liberia this afternoon. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Also from Canada, we have Mr. Abu Bakar Dukle. Mr. Dukle is an Islamic scholar. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we have two Canadians in the house. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia.
We're showing up so that you don't make us the 51st state.
That's just a bluff. All right. So you guys remember Alaji Kroma Party? That's the first thing I wanted to discuss. Well, this party is in a coalition, or you could say alliance, with the Unity Party. When the Unity Party was running the alliances, right? ALCOP, half of Liberty Party, and all that. Right now, ALCOP is saying, before we join you, we have some agreements, and you are not living to those agreements. You are not living up to them. Jimmy, this is not new. You know, when you join political parties or you support people for whatever you want. ALCOP is saying this is time to give us what we asked for and you agree on. That's why we joined the alliance.
As usual, politics is politics. Politicians make promises, and many promises are not met. ALCOP is now disenchanted with the Unity Party simply because there's certain things they thought they would realize is not being realized. So I would have figured that they would have gone to discussion first, negotiation. Why aren't their expectations met, and how can they be addressed? So I'm not sure if they skipped that step or if they did do it, but it's not surprising that they've been disappointed. I think it's a little bit early in the game, but besides just coming up with their contention, they should say exactly what they expect from the Unity Party. It should make it very clear to the public, and so that we can either sympathize or at least understand where they're coming from. Lack of information in this sort of conflict is not telling. We have to be more transparent in our deliberation, in our communication, so that people will know, people be aware of the tenets of their argument. At this point, we can only believe that it's positions. Certain positions will not.
They also call for 2 holidays. That's Abraham Day and the end of Ramadan.
Now, granting holidays it has to go through a referendum, I believe, in the Senate. I don't know. I don't think executive order can establish a holiday, a permanent holiday. I think that would have to be something that goes through legislation. And so that if they made that promise, what they need to do is put it forth to the legislature and have them vote or discuss it, so that I don't think it is a bad idea to grant people, Liberians who are of Muslim influence, a holiday. I don't think it is a bad idea at all. But
thank you, Jimmy. Mr. Johnson, the youth group from ALCOP say, hey, give us holidays. The issue of Islamic holidays is not new. ALCOP now, maybe, there's a political party, but probably taking the line of an Islamic party or so, but it's not surprising. Also, they're also saying we're supposed to get certain number of jobs. Why the delay in getting jobs?
Yeah, I will go to the holidays first. I think there's a big piece that people are missing here, right? Not only in Liberia, if you go to many countries around the world because of colonial legacy. First of all, let's talk about colonial legacy. Colonialism kind of got embedded into a lot of these countries that got independence or were on a colonial rule. Though Liberia was not on a direct colonial rule, but still was governed and established by people who came from the United States by and large with their understanding. And these things got more embedded. Christian holidays, because it was the dominant religion of colonizers, what they exported on the African continent. These holidays that they brought, they embedded it within the institutions, right? When you hear people even wanting to say Liberia was founded on Christian principles, quote unquote, it's because they embedded these. Even most constitutions of these countries are modeled after the Ten Commandments. Most major constitutions of the world were modeled after the Ten Commandments. So what has happened is that most of these Christian holidays have become very secularized, in the sense that if you look at a lot of Christian holidays, for example, they've become very, very secular. I'll give you an example. Christmas, for example, is often celebrated more as a secular holiday, focused on gift giving, Santa Claus, family, even by non-Christians. It's considered more of a family holiday. Yes, Christians still go to the church and all of the things they need to do, but Christmas is widely celebrated everywhere. The challenge is some of the other religions, let's say Islam, for example, their mean days or celebration days have not become as secularized as most of the Christian holidays. In fact, to some extent, there are sensitivities around some of the other religions that, people get offended when they are referred to or consider a certain way. Christianity, for example, people can mock it, people can do all kinds of stuff at it because their Bible say it's okay. You can allow it, let God judge. But other religions may not be as secularized. So if you notice it, you don't get the same type of overwhelming participation from the broader population as compared to many Christian holidays, even Easter, right? All kinds of people participate in Easter for many different reasons, even non-Christians and Christians alike. So I think what I would say is, if you want an Islamic holiday, like most people, which again, Liberia is a secular state, no matter what anybody say. So yes, but the question is there the same type of willingness for these religious holidays to become as secularized as the other ones in a non-religious state?
Okay, let's take, for instance, let's say the end of Ramadan or Abraham Day. What do you mean when you say they will be secularized? Because even now, nobody is stopping you from celebrating or doing the Islam, identifying with the faith during their holidays. So what do you mean secularized?
Let me give you a typical example. Christmas Day, that the day everybody goes out to get booze and get drunk everywhere. People drink rampant alcohol everywhere. Like all of the things that are anti-Christians, right?
Yeah.
But
those things are not done in the church. So if you go to a church,
no, but I'm saying they're done on the day.
So are you suggesting that if there is an end of Ramadan, and I'm celebrating, I'm a Buddhist, when they see me drinking, the imam will come with a switch and say,
the question, I'm asking you that because I've seen opinions of where other religions have been very harsh against how their celebrations of stuff are commemorated. If everybody in Liberia said today is the end of Ramadan, right? And we are celebrating the end of Ramadan. And all the parties around the place are all alcohol, booze, all the things. Because Islam is a bit stricter, let's be honest. And, let's be fair. Islam, and, the way Islam is practiced is a bit much more stricter than how Christianity is. As what even in the church, we serve wine. We serve alcohol for communion. Even in the church. Again, I'm not saying people should, that's why we're happy. I'm just saying the reason why you're not getting the same overwhelming public support of people who are non-Islamic, like you would do with Christianity, is because these things have been embedded historically for such a long time that it has become secularized. So even people
so they have evolved. They probably didn't start like that, but they have evolved.
They have evolved over a long period of
We'll
time.
give chance. All right, but we have an Islamic scholar here because I disagree with what you said. But let me hear from the Islamic scholar.
I mean, that is fair, but we can hear from someone who's actually much closer to it and studying as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis. This issue has multiple dimensions to it. It does have a political one, and the political one is intertwined with the cultural one, and as well as the social one. And so, when I heard my brother Leo, they're talking about colonialism. Look, even though people say we were not colonized, but of course we did adopt everything that colonials do, and places that were colonized, whatever happened, it all happened in Liberia. And so in the historical context of this, Muslims were marginalized on purpose by the immigrants that came, the Americo-Liberian. And I mean, we can argue on the reasons for that, but whatever started then was continued until today in at different levels. So personally, myself, I mean, look, if we are going to agree on a day as a holiday, and as people have suggested, Abraham Day, and I think it's only fair if you want to be if you want to be fair to all of every major religions in Liberia. But you see, because people generally associate Islam in Liberia with Mandingos, even though there are other ethnic groups who are Muslims, but because there is this undertone of racism towards Mandingo people, and so and by that I mean there are in some circles they are not even considered to be proper Liberians. Some will consider them. So with that on people's mind, and some of the nonsense you hear, even well-learned Liberians say, "Oh, Liberia was founded on a principle." Nonsense like that have been normalized, and people. I mean, take for example, why is it that it's not required to teach Quran in schools? And the curriculum comes from the Ministry of Education. So this is a discrimination at the national level, where the curriculum is built around that mentality, and they have come to reinforce that mentality in every sphere of our lives. With that said, ALCOP, whatever ALCOP is doing, it was a political arrangement, and I'm pretty sure when these arrangements were being carried on, there were conditions put forward, and before this arrangement was consummated between ALCOP and Unity Party. But you see, during the campaign is one thing. After the election, it's completely another. Look,
Mr. Dukley.
Yes.
So this thing about Islamic holiday, because you were talking about marginalization, you were talking about how people, when they think Islam, they think Mandingo.
Yes.
When they think ALCOP, they also think Mandingo.
Absolutely.
So if this is coming from ALCOP,
yes,
do you think that is further validating or further validating that
it reinforces the stereotype, like the stereotype?
Yes, absolutely.
So should it be coming from ALCOP, because it's like you are digging yourself further in a hole?
Well, the thing is, because of the political arrangement, and because of some of the political expectations that ALCOP might have had, obviously, I mean, that's why you see this thing emanating from the youth wing of the party, not the other part of the party, like the elders, etc. Because this must have been, I'm pretty sure this must have been one of the demands that ALCOP might have demanded from Unity Party. And again, like I said, during the election and during the campaign season, what people say at that time and what people what people will pledge to do, it's completely different when the election is held. Because at that time, the political calculus here we want to maximize our numbers here. And even though, generally speaking, ALCOP is regarded as a marginalized political party, anyways, and so, but because of the way we saw the campaign, and it was not a secret that the writing was on the wall that United Party was going to win this election. They just needed to get as many alliances that they can get. So right now, what you see happening is politics. But personally, I'm not one of the proponents of this Islamic holiday, simply because if you want to have a holiday, first of all, you must agree on a day that must be a holiday. But if you're a Muslim in Liberia and it's Abraham Day, you should be allowed to take that day off and celebrate it. Because the thing is, because for me, if you're going to give me a holiday, then you should also give me my other rights that I've been deprived of. For example, teaching the Quran in the schools. Like I was telling you earlier, why can the Quran be allowed to be taught in school like the Bible is taught? And to include the Quran in the curriculum so that it can reflect our reality, it can reflect our population composition. So what ALCOP is demanding, I think, is their right. But whatever you see the Unity Party doing is pure politics, because right now the people feel they don't need ALCOP, and so. But I mean, this is not a new demand. This is not, and I think it's politically expedient to see if they can actually offer them whatever that they're asking.
Yeah, thank you. And Jimmy Leo talk about the secularization, right? Because I think the way I look at it is people coming together because it's all business. The Christianity, the Christian, all the holidays, right?
It's commercialized and
right. Easter, they're selling eggs, they're selling bunny rabbits.
Yeah, it's all commercial and circular
Thanksgiving, turkey,
all commercial and secular stuff.
This idea, and sometimes we like to take things, on religious or travel line.
Yes.
But if you can sit down as a business person and say, well, let's see how, because I don't believe that the person who the best Christmas celebration are done by Christians. They're all business people.
Exactly.
In fact, the guy who probably the first guy to sew wedding clothes never got married. Exactly. But in Liberia, it looks like we refuse to think about these things as business.
Yeah.
Even our current holidays, what are we getting out of them is just to stay home.
But Dennis, just to make an important point here to Duke and to you as well on the question you actually ask. I think the challenge with this thing being looked at on its merit has been because every time I've heard it, it's been a politicized conjecture. Whether it was from the previous governments or government before, people have always gone the political line. So it has made it very sensitive compared to, say, let's say if we had a genuine effort, of a collection of different citizens, not just Muslims, or not just coming from a party that is dominant and, or quote unquote seen as dominant Muslim. Let's say a civil society movement.
Yes.
Of Muslims, non-Muslims, Christians, atheists agreeing on the fact that something like this could help with the cohesion in the country or the unity in the country.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that it might get a stronger intervention compared to when it becomes now asking President Bouaka, saying you promise and now you win, you might. It's just get politicized and people will think it's a political trophy that people are trying to get, and it alienates other people who may not be Muslims or who may not identify with, compared to, say, if the arguments were being made solely on the rights, on the issue of religious rights or religious freedoms and not within the political realm, given how polarized and divided our politics have been.
And Jimmy, that too comes as a result of ignorance or the lack of knowledge, right? Because soon you hear Muslim, all you think is all the negative things in your mind.
That's right.
It shouldn't be so because you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But another one to look at is these holidays. If we take too much of the religious approach, are we also willing to grant holidays to the Hindus in our midst?
But Mr. Ja, to be fair, we haven't taken a religious approach in Liberia. It's just that we are such a disorganized society that we haven't been able to strategically allow the commercial activities and affairs of the country to be a holiday. I thought people can go drink the clubs and the nightclubs and the bars.
What I mean is Christian, we want Christian holiday, we want Muslim holiday, we want this holiday, right? We are not So if we say we want a holiday based on religion, other religions will ask for their own, right, Jimmy? And why
Yeah,
not?
I think
Or will there be a threshold? You got to get 20,000
I,
followers, then you get holiday.
I think for us to entertain this, we really have to take a historical perspective. I heard the brother Douglas saying that when we think Islam in Liberia, we think Mandingo. For me, when I think Islam, I think Vai. The Vai people, to me, they were the first. They were one of the first to introduce
But
Islam.
they're a very small tribe, Jimmy.
Yeah, they're a small tribe. Now, the thing about the Mandingo, they are very enterprising. They are very more impact society more than any other.
They are
If you look at the
entrepreneurs.
history of Africa,
Yeah, they are
the Mandingos
entrepreneurs.
have impacted Africa more than any other tribe in at least the West African region. So their impact is heavy. So when it comes to including this holiday, if you even look at here, you notice that there is no Jewish holiday in the USA. But every time Hanukkah comes around, Yom Kippur, and all those other holidays, they do celebrate it in a way, but it's not a national holiday. So to establish a national holiday for a religious group, that will have to take the consensus of the whole body. I don't see nothing wrong with Muslims making it felt that the Abraham Day is a holiday by simply not working that day, by simply not operating their businesses that day. In that way, they will have the same impact as if it was quoted in law. But for it to be in law before you're satisfied, I just think those who want to have that holiday, they should just act and support it in a way that the whole country will feel it without it necessarily being written in law. So, I think...
And Jimmy, that's true, right? Because what you can also do is what you plan on that day, right? So let's say if we, and I'm using just an example, if at the end of every Ramadan, and you are inviting Barcelona and Real Madrid to play in Monrovia, for instance, you think people will go somewhere else?
Exactly.
So
Right.
it's what we do and how we present this thing, how we package it. And then the commercial part I was talking about is, okay, on this day we all eat cow or we eat chicken. And so the business wide, they will have all these cattle farms, and then where we go, see how we buy turkey. Who told us? So what is it that we can embed in our holidays that to promote because someone who is selling turkey now or who is selling cow will be on your side to want the holiday because he wants to sell his cow.
That's right.
And then all the businesses that are sewing those garments, you can come up with something. It could be some form of candy or some form of cake, and many people get involved. But what I said we always look at this thing either from a tribal perspective or religious perspective, and we leave the big picture. Now, most African presidents will go into sports, not that they can play sports, but they know that this is where the people are.
Yeah.
So you join sports, you find your football team, because you want votes. So if you know that you have maybe 30% of the country population Muslim, wouldn't you join them up? These days now, what I see is everybody is either giving something, going to the mosque and giving something to identify or doing something. So if you want vote or if you want popularity and you want that group, you join them to do whatever they're doing. But we are thinking too much religious and we are thinking too much tribe.
But Dennis, I think you're missing some fundamental things here. Okay. We are not thinking too much religion and too much tribe. That's what we've been. It's not that we are thinking. When you say we are thinking that you're acting like to say we are just using something. No. Liberia, Sunday, we shut down the whole country, right? The whole country. And the rest of the week while we're supposed to be working, we are unproductive. The whole week. If you're lucky to get to town and come back within 5 hours in Liberia, then God bless you. If you're lucky. Mm-hmm. So the whole week we are unproductive, but then it's just Sunday. People got to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning to make it to the church because they usher. They get to clean. They will make it, but to work, They will say, "Oh, they traffic." You know,
So what am I missing?
We've become tribal. We are a tribal country that has become so tribalized. This is over decades and decades and decades. So it's not just onto the religious part of it. And religious, we are an extremely religious society. That's how we've actually become. So until we start to show productivity in any other sector, in Liberia, the only sector that is productive is the religious sector. And the tribal, no other sector, name me any other sector that is productive. If you want more people to come to church or to come to a crusade, you can fill up a football stadium. Try it and do a workshop on people how to actually write.
But Leo, I think if you really want to go a little further, I think this notion of religion, and I think you to a larger extent Christianity, they have now pushed religion to a point where I dare say to our detriment, because now you see people, they get sick and they say they're going to go to the church for healing. When they are ill with illnesses that are clear, they are so obvious that they need to see a doctor, a medical doctor who should have to diagnose them. Instead, they are going to defer to their religion. They will still go to the pastor. And I'll give you a very practical example. I remember during the Ebola in Liberia, the 13,000 Liberians that died, 60 to 65% of them were Muslims. And the reason was that the religious leader failed to play their required role, because as a matter of fact, even a family member of mine who happened to be a doctor, he died, and he and his 3 wives and all the children died except one of the sons. And the only reason why the son didn't die, on that fateful day that he came home with the Ebola, the son had gone to Monrovia to buy provisions to come back. And so the religious leaders supposed to tell their congregation, look, this is an illness. When somebody dies, even a dead body can contaminate. Do not wash the body. Yes, in Islam, we are asked to wash our bodies before we can bury them. But look, there's also a concept in Islam that says that circumstances alleviate prohibition. So whatever is prohibited, circumstances can remove it. Say if whatever you are about to do, religiously speaking, circumstances can allow you to do them. And this is one of those situations where, because of the health concern, the imams should have gone to the mosque and tell their congregation, nobody should wash your body. Burn them, bury them as they are. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because of the health challenges we're facing. So these are some of the things that our religious leaders have failed us. And so people now in Liberia, when they get sick, they say, oh, let's take them to the pastor. Let's take them to the church. I mean, this is how much we have allowed religion to infiltrate our lives to our own detriment.
Yeah, I Mr. Dukle, I totally agree with you. Because the ritual practice, it's a ritual, washing your body and all of that. And many people strictly adhere to those rituals. Now, there's a difference between rituals and what the interpretation of the holy books, what the holy books say. The same thing with Christianity. There are rituals that are done, but it's not in the Bible. Similarly, in Islam, there's this ritual about washing the body. I'm not sure if the Quran dictates that this should happen, but as you well put, there's an exception to every rule.
That's right.
And it's the religious leaders that need to lead, to educate, to expose the people to the flexibility of the religion when it's necessary. But as we've seen, where we've been able to understand, Muslims are they adhere. We see them praying 3 times a day in the public without relent. So we see them very pedantic when it comes to following their rituals and their laws. But at the same, and they don't want to lose that. And that's one thing I admired about the Islam, because they try to preserve their practice. But when it comes to these sort of situations, how do you expose people to doing the more scientific, the right proper thing.
And that's where I was going, right? So we can move on.
Yeah, Dennis, just before you move on quickly, I think
one second, Leo, because Drukle, what you're saying is people are. I really see this as coping, because if healthcare facilities are available, you think people will do all those things they're doing? You know, I knew one pastor who say, "I don't use chloroquine, I use prayer queen." That pastor is broke. He can't go to the hospital. He doesn't have the facility. So if those things are there, the people will use those facilities, I believe.
And Dennis, that's the point I was actually coming to. There are two key things here. One, abject poverty and desperation. If I were in Liberia, I'm sick. Duke are telling me, say, we can go to the hospital. And I see JFK that just for killing, so the training can call it in Liberia this time around. And I'm almost, guaranteed based on all the stories coming out of there. And two, I even probably don't have the resources to go pay cash, or they even gave me bed. And somebody tell me, say there's a pastor behind the house, or there's an imam or whoever religious person behind the house that can pray for your child to get healed. I'm not going there because it's my first preference. I'm going there because it's the only thing accessible to me, one. But number two, I think people forget all of us were there during the war when we're in absolute desperation or whatever. We all turn to faith. We turn to something higher than us. That's when you do. I've had the opportunity for 1 year to work in hospitals when people are dying. And you will be shocked when even atheists, people who live their whole life as atheists, on their dying bed, they're trying to connect with some kind of spirituality. They're looking for something that can give them some type of hope that is not ending, that there is somewhere to go. The last thing is education. We're talking all the time. It's absolute. Our nation is not unique. There were many countries that were here before. Even the great United States of America at one point was a very religious state. And to some extent, you can still see some of it. The only difference is now, those same people who are very religious have become so educated that they know the church can be used to win state power. The church can be used to create scientists. The church can be used to create medical doctors. The church can be used to create debaters, to create speech. So the same church in other countries are producing many, many more than only prayer warriors and praise and worshipers. Unfortunately, in Liberia, the lack of investment in education across the board means even the churches, the schools and everything are only teaching what is acceptable in Liberia as education. So until we get to the bottom of education, this question cannot be answered.
Thank you. What I want you to conclude on this one is jobs. Because another thing they ask for is say, well, we're supposed to give us jobs. All the jobs we're talking about here, a government job. In fact, we are not talking about creating the private sector so that people can work there. It's all government jobs. And so you come there, you meet 100 people working in this office, you take them out in the name of cleaning up, and then you bring your own 100 persons from your party.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's not a surprise that the public sector is the largest employer in Liberia, and usually, and I don't know if any of you followed somebody did some auditing of the WEA government and the Joseph Barker government to compare how many Madingos, how many Muslims were in each, and I mean, it was just so mind-boggling to see. I mean, it's as if Joseph Barker doesn't want to see anything Muslim or anything Madingo. But I mean, that aside, this is one of the things that I've always come to struggle with, where most of the time the trade-off of any alliance and the trade-off of any political alliances is usually based on jobs for members of the other alliance. And so when you see, every time I say on this platform that Joseph Barker is beholden to so many interests, to the point where he's gotten himself so confused, he doesn't even know how to get out of the mess he has created. This is one of them that has now come to bite him, where he might have made concessions or promises, and then he can't live up to those promises because the other interests that he's beholden to, they can't let him, and I'm saying this speculatively. I'm just speculating. I don't know for a fact, but usually these arrangements are made around the provision of jobs to your alliance partner. So it's just our inability to sort of create a functioning alliance, because once the election is over, nobody cares after that, and so. Look at how long it's been. It's been a little over a year since we had the election. gone to the second year now, and now they're just asking for whatever they had agreed. And what was the nature of this agreement? Was there anything in writing? Was there anything? I mean, I don't know. So it's kind of. I mean, I read about it. I've seen people making YouTube videos, etc. But I mean, there's nothing concrete to say, wait, this is what we were promised, and so let's hold them to it. So, and on a regular basis, the government is unable to do anything. You know, I mean, even if it was not ALCOP, any other party for that matter, if you were not Prince Johnson's party, I don't see any other alliance member who can say, okay, we need this. Because look, even ordinarily speaking, without ALCOP, Unity Party would have still won anyways.
But I want to ask you something, Dugley.
Yes.
To the point. The point is this. Just let me land 1 second. I'm saying, do Muslims necessarily need to have a declared holiday? Because I gave the example of even Jews a year. I grew up in New York in a Jewish neighborhood. And even though Hanukkah was not celebrated, but during those days of Hanukkah, none of them went to school. None of them came to school. And we were all virtually on a holiday. I'm saying that Muslims can make their impact known, their Abraham Day known, without legislation, by simply celebrating the holiday the way they want to. I remember on Fridays.
But would they be penalized if they don't go to school or work?
They will not be penalized. They will not penalized.
So you don't know that if they work for a private institution that says I don't.
Yeah, but then so what the way around that, Jimmy, is that you legislated that whoever believes in whatever, if their day comes, he or she must be allowed to celebrate that day, just like it is here. I mean,
religious freedom is guaranteed in the Constitution.
If look, before, as soon as the Ramadan starts here, the university sends out memo to every department about all the Muslims who are in every department. You are entitled to take whatever. I mean,
but it is not legislated though. So to that point, you do the way
no. I'm just citing this one as an example. Yeah, you can do the same thing in Liberia, but legislated.
Jimmy is saying you can still do it without it being legislated because
no. My point of legislation here, I mean, not to legislate the Abraham Day, but to say whoever belongs to any other faith other than Christianity, if it is a big day, you should be allowed to take that day and celebrate without being penalized.
Guaranteed.
But don't we already have that in the Liberian Constitution?
I don't know. I have no idea.
But Dennis,
I want us to move on.
Dennis, before you go, there's a quick one.
We're spending enough time here.
No, to the jobs. It's to the jobs side. We didn't say much about the jobs I want to talk about. I'm worried too that there's a dangerous trend here, right? It's one thing to be asking for jobs based on a tribal or religious line. It's one thing for ALCOP to say as a party, in the alliance, asking for jobs. Because I want to believe it, not only Maningo people that are in ALCOP. There are other tribes there. The way people are skewing it to make it, they're asking ALCOP wants job because Maningo people are not in the government too. It reinforces the way the narratives that they are developing reinforces the very stereotype that we all are trying to get rid of. You can say ALCOP is looking for jobs. So I fundamentally believe that's not the right approach anyway. But I'm saying if that was the alliance agreement, don't narrow it to the stereotype again and make it about comparing how many Maningo people were in Jowiya government versus how many Maningo people are in Joseph Boaga government, because ALCOP should not be only a Mandingo party. If it is a political party, I believe there are other tribes that are also members of ALCOP.
Yeah. In fact, Liberty Party, people were saying it's Bassa Party. So when Musa Bilete was chairman, some people say, we can't give our party, and that's why we're saying we think too much this tribally or religious. But I want us to go to our next thing, which is CMC. In fact, the one they call Musa Bilete Party. They said something. Citizens Movement for Change, CMC, they call out the Unity Party official for code of conduct violation.
Yeah.
The Unity Party official were canvassing for Kroger in the, I can say,
remember.
We have the grocery Kroger, so it's Koga. Koga, and they are, Jimmy, before I even come to that, why do Unity Party people want Koga? Is it just because the same alliance issue MDR and so what really about him that Unity Party want to support him from representative after he served there how many years? And the man is just, nothing against him, but why they want him? What are they saying?
I mean, if you saw the ongoing saga in the legislature, you would understand why Koga would be a strong proponent. Koga was one of those who was pro Kun and anti Kofa. So there's this strong alliance that he has with the Unity Party representatives. So now that they are contesting another seat, okay, he being one of the allies of the Kun administration, the Kun / Boakai administration, you can understand why that they will support him. Okay, it's quite evident that he has embedded himself in the current regime and the hierarchy of this regime, and so they want to have one of their people, in that position.
But he's
That's how they
already
wanted Kun in that position.
He's already there as a representative, right? Or what's the big difference that they want him to accomplish in the Senate?
Well, a senator is of a higher echelon than a representative.
So they can't get any other MDR or any other Unity Party person.
That's the nature of the politics. I noticed that representatives want to become senators, and want to assume other higher positions. So it's natural that a representative wants to become a senator. We've seen this over and over again. We saw Snow. Snow was a representative. Now he's a senator. We've seen this over and over again, that people matriculate to being senators after being representatives. It's a higher pay. It's a higher status.
Yeah.
And that's why they want that that position. So Koga wants to be senator simply because he will have greater influence than that of a representative.
So the question here is, according to the code of conduct, that's what CMC and other people are saying, all officials appointed by the President of the Republic of Liberia shall not engage in political activities, canvass, or contest for elected position. That 5.1a. B says they shall not use government facilities, equipment, or resources in support of partisan or political activities. C, serve on a campaign team of any political party or the campaign of any independent candidate. Leo, so what they are doing, those that were appointed, that were saying at the Koga rally, and that's why I'm not going to call him Kroger again. The Koga rally, these people were in violation of the code of conduct, Leo.
You are muted. You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I would say, Mr. Jai, it's a bigger problem here. And it's the same thing we have across Liberia with the constitutional issue. We got a bunch of laws. I think some of them are badly written. This particular code, in my opinion, the premise of it is wrong. That's part of the problem we are having. Number two, we don't have enforcement. And this is why we're seeing things go into the Supreme Court and becoming more confusing than not. Because the way our laws have been written, they've been neglected or written to target specific scenarios at a particular point in time, rather than written in a way that makes sense for the longer period. If you say all officials appointed by the President of the Republic of Liberia shall not engage in political activities, canvass, or contact letter officers, what does that even mean when you say political activities? Like, if you go to any Supreme Court to define, and the first the Supreme Court tells you, say, define political activity. So, for example, if Musa Bello are having a meeting to his house in his living room about discussing strategies, and a government official went there, do you consider that political activity? If somebody reported it, right? So you got this vague stretch of things, and when you hear people arguing now, they are pulling out all kinds of specific things to see whether it fit and what, and we are confused. But what this is doing is practically saying people should do something that is humanly impossible to uphold. It is not. So if you go with a case right now to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court might just tell you, say the law is vague and does not specify particularly what you are defining as political activity, like we saw with the House of Representatives. Yes, the Supreme Court tells you that a lot of jargons in here that have no specific definition as to what qualifies as political activity, unless there's another supplementary law that define what qualifies as a political activity. For example, elected office is very clear, right? when you say elected offices. But when you say political activities, it's not clear. And then go to a B, use government facility, equipment, or resources, support, partisan, or political activity. It gets even more confusing now because what you've done, you've created this bogus thing called political activities or whatever. So you can use government resources, so the impen too, or the cars that you're buying for these people that they can use to go to nightclub, they can use to go to girlfriend, they can use to do all kinds of activity. They almost treat it like their own cars when they have it. It's not being treated as government property. They keep it to their houses, they keep it to their own locations. But then you come and write a code of conduct that say at the same time they can do this. So for me, I think this whole thing will end up in another quagmire. So I will not sweat to say this person wrong and that person right because it is vague. It is almost impossible to interpret.
Leo, I beg to differ with you on this one.
That's fair.
And look, in practice, if anyone who is genuine and sincere, this law can be applied fully. And the intention behind it, I might add, is to avoid conflict of interest. Where if you are in government, you have access to all these facilities as opposed to someone who is not in government. And that's one aspect. The other aspect of it, we as a nation, we are not used to abiding by our own laws. And people have now come to internalize these kind of way of behaving, especially when the law is going to inhibit my activity. So we only cherish, we only enforce law that we feel doesn't apply to us. And I'll give you a very, very recent example. You saw the legislator that was piling his vehicle on the street with no document whatsoever. He was going the opposite direction. He was pulled over, and when the police officer pulled him over, the next thing he did, he summoned the IG in his office.
Yeah, but dude, that's not my point. My point is define political.
No. I'm coming. I'm getting to that point.
Yeah.
So this notion of what is political activity?
Yeah, what is it?
Listen, if you want to argue that it's not defined as look, any political activity that can impact on the election. So
what is that?
When you say resources, they're not talking about pen. They're not talking about sheep. Yeah, you might if your intention is genuine and you really want to apply the law, because the intention of the law is to avoid conflict of interest, is to make the playing field plain for everybody.
This is legal matter, Duke, unless it's black, white.
Hold on. Yes, political activities can be defined, right?
Yes,
and that's why they go back to the intent of the law. What is it that they were talking about?
That's right.
Right now, in this case, they say don't canvass or don't contest for elected offices. Before you do that, resign 2 years prior. But as you were saying, some of these things, they were, especially the code of conduct, poorly written because they were targeting.
Specific people and specific.
They were targeting specific people. But and all through, they have not tried. You only obey when it applies to you.
Yes.
Eugene Nambe, for instance, was a campaign manager, even though and then other people are supposed to resign 2 years prior.
That's right. That's right.
It takes us back to, the imperial presidency, whatever, that's it.
Yeah, because Dennis, we are not used to following our own laws. This is something that is well documented. We only apply if it doesn't affect us. And this particular case is not any different from the previous one that we've seen and we have heard. You just cited a very good example with Eugene Agbe. So it simply means as a certain member of the government, you shouldn't be active in politics.
So what is even shocking, Duke, is that this same code of conduct has been argued by other people before and pointed out some of the vague languages in how it was written, and nothing has been done by the legislature to update.
Yeah.
Because, Mr. Jai, people learn, right? If somebody tell you a law, take it to court and manage to poke someone, even someone a hole and leave a small room of doubt in it. Over the years, what would have happened, Mr. Jai? And they would have tightened and improve it.
Yeah. This one is not ambiguous when it comes to what those guys who are in the Koga campaign are doing. So this one is clear.
No,
Yes,
but
but
at the same time, Mr. Job, at the same time,
it's never been enforced to
Right.
other people.
at the
how-
same time,
that is the lack of-
Exactly. But that's what happened. It's the enforcement when it comes to that. But it's
but let's
yeah,
examine why the enforcement is not
because it benefits the person in power.
let's examine why the enforcement is not forthcoming. First of all, okay, what was the intent of the law? The intent was the law that those who are in government positions, appointed government positions, not elected government positions,
It's unrealistic.
but appointed government positions should not use government resources to politic, to go ahead and campaign. That's what was the intention. Okay. However, we have seen that to do that, they emphasize that there has to be a resignation. You have to resign before you can do it, simply because they don't want you using government resources. So that was the whole intent. But what the
Or
implementation
give you unfair advantage.
Yeah.
it gives you an unfair advantage. But the implementation of it now, you are dealing with people who empower, powerful people. Are you going to tell them to park their vehicles? Are you going to tell them to resign from the position? Enforcing it has been a problem.
Right. And Jimmy, even your vehicle, right? This is for government, but some the local boss say, hey, I gotta use the other one for errand because on weekend I gotta go to my pepper. You know, when we were in refugee land working for the UN or other places, you can even your sick
park
mother.
the vehicle before you leave. You
put your sick mother in the car, you're in trouble.
But Dennis, that is the point I'm making, to say it doesn't make sense talking about the law is applicable and enforceable, because first of all the frameworks that need to be in place are not in place. So these people are okay. They use this vehicle at random already as they need to. They put their fire code inside from their farm, they drive it to Monrovia. They don't report it to a GSA. They take it to nightclubs all over Monrovia. There's no ordinances over there. So when you write a law like this, there's no framework to implement it. Zero. So how do you enforce a law without the same thing with the Liberian Constitution? There's no framework, because, for example, if there was an ordinance around government vehicle, like Dennis, you're saying, right, where all government vehicles are supposed to be parked by 4 p.m., either at the GSA compound or at the ministry's compound before you take your private vehicle to go home, we're not going to be worried about people on the weekend driving government car to go to somewhere else when no government vehicle available to you on the weekend anyway, because it's only in use from Monday to Friday. So to enforce these laws, the plethora of things and institutions and infrastructure and systems that should be in place, none of them exist. So it's impossible to enforce it.
I go to work here, you clock in from 9 to 5.
Exactly.
So when you clock in, so if you leave work and you go do something else outside of work, you have to clock out, meaning you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
So if you don't have vacation time, you can go, right? But we have a system where ministers, nobody works. Senator and representative work twice a week if they want to. And then ministers, you are not there. So the time you take, you are in Limba canvassing, you're supposed to be on the clock. Did you put in for vacation, or what is it that you're doing? Jimmy, continue. You were land your points.
Yeah. So my point was, some of these laws are symbolic laws because they're not enforceable. And they may have good intentions, but this is why we one of the reasons we have all these constitutional debates and brouhaha is simply because we have not revisited. Let me see. Law is a living document, and it should be improved upon at generation after generation after generation. And if you have these ambiguities, you have to revisit it and find how to refine them or remove them. Like the citizen clause. The citizen clause had been sitting down or wrong, was unenforceable, was illegal, unconstitutional, but it sat around for years.
It's still unenforceable right now.
We have to take upon ourselves. We have to take upon ourselves to revisit these laws, and those that like when we have situations like this. We've found ourselves in a place that can we address this matter that people are politicking and they are using government? What can we do about it? But these are the opportunities we take and refine the law. But when we don't do that and we allow it to perpetuate, then we continue having these problems.
Thank you.
It's a living document. You have to continually improve it.
Thank you. So Dukle,
Yes.
we have the Ombudsman Office,
Yes.
whose job it is to enforce these things or at least check on them that something is. So now, Musa Bilete or the CMC had filed this. What do you think the Ombudsman going to be doing here?
Well, I mean, it's like you keep you got a jar of cookies and then you keep it with the with the seed.
With the children.
Yeah, you're gonna keep it. Look, you see, Musta Belede is a very brilliant politician. He knows the system. He's played within the system, and he knows. I know Musta Belede know within himself this is not going to go anywhere. But he has to create this situation because I mean the ombudsman is going to do exactly what the government wants. That's part of the problem. Nobody is independent in Liberia. You know, there's some of these position agencies supposed to be, non-partisan, purely independent people who render their decision based on the facts and based on the law. But unfortunately, we have come to measure everything based on the governing party and the opposition party. Period. Nothing beyond that. And so the point most benefit team is raising is a valid point. It deserves to be looked into. But then when they look into it, and then what? I don't see where the ombudsman is going to come and recommend XYZ and we see XYZ implemented because we have come to internalize mediocre in Liberia to be the norm. And so for that reason, even something as, look, I will tell you guys something, you won't believe this, but in the Liberia traffic law, it was prohibited to drive with slippers, with flip-flops. I don't know if you know that. If you drove your car wearing flip-flops, they used to stop you and fine you or give you a ticket, whatever. I mean, something, I'm just citing this to tell you that
I see why I don't like to do it. I still afraid to do it in America. So I see that law is still in the back of my mind.
I can tell you when that law was implemented, you had a series of accidents with cabmen and they were wearing slippers. So as a safety precaution, they said nobody will mess.
They said because you are wearing slippers, somebody just made the assumption. Is there any scientific?
No. I remember when that law went into.
No. I'm just asking. Was there any scientific research that proved that wearing slippers leads to accident, or it was just an assumption made that led to a law?
Leo,
that's a good question.
Leo,
what they had associated with people wearing slippers and having accidents.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist.
Don't have that law. People drive with slippers and they're not having many accidents because of that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know how our laws are made, Leo. Don't act as if to say you are talking about some developed country here. So because of, I mean, I was just citing that as an example how we got all these things happening. So, like I said, the point the CMC is raising they're all valid ones. But are they going to be looked into? No. Like you said earlier, Jimmy, every law over time needs to be overhauled so that it can reflect the new reality. That's just
exactly.
It's supposed to be human nature. That's how things work. Something was instituted at a certain time, under certain circumstances. Those circumstances have changed. Now we want to overhaul this law so that it can reflect our new reality. Unfortunately, that is what we have not done in Liberia, so that our laws will reflect our new reality, especially having gone through 14 years of killing ourselves. All these guys in the legislature there, allocating, I don't know how many $1,000 for them for a car every 3 years. I mean, do they actually deserve that? No, they don't deserve that. We need to put an end to that. We need to, I mean, what are the roles that we have for them to even drive those vehicles on? And I mean, since when a poor country as Liberia, every 3 years, they must be given a vehicle, a transportation allowance. But all of this is, we see people have come to internalize all of this to be the best practice. When you and I know, far from it. But this is how we are just pushing ourselves into the rabbit hole that we don't have a way out. So Musa Belele can say all he wants. Musa Belele can complain all he wants. Absolutely nothing. The ombudsman is going to stay. I mean, did you guys not hear about the
Yeah.
efforts? The
Brother
efforts.
Douglas,
Yes.
I beg to differ on that. There is a way out. You cannot allow the Senate to determine their salaries. You cannot allow the Senate to determine their own benefits. There has to be an autonomous body that determines what they get. And that's the heart of the problem. They are determining how much money they make, what kind of benefits they get, and it should not be. There should be a separate body that will look at the budget, they look at the availability of funds, and determine what is the justified pay for representatives and other legislatures. What is the proper amount of allowances to give them, to grant them, whether they should be getting gas slips or getting cars and all of that. But we allow our people to dictate to us what they want. And this is inherently the problem until we take that power from them.
Jimmy, that's why I said nobody is independent, because they're supposed to be done by an independent body. Look, I will tell you something. Here, the city of Winnipeg has a gas station with a code. Every police cruiser here, you need to gas, you go there, you punch in your code, you get your gas. You're not getting it from nobody. All right? And the gas in there is allocated based on the need. So they do know how many liters of gas is there. They do know the usage of. So look, these things can be done, but we don't have anybody who is independent minded. Because everything we do, it has to reflect our interests.
Leo, before you come in, because we're still in NIMBA, and I want us to see, so what will be done? What do we see? Today in NIMBA, during the same campaign, they said there was a standoff between the...
Yeah.
I'm not asking question. What brought you here today?
Yaka is there.
Yes.
Yaka is in Limbaugh, and then there's a standoff. You know, they say Koga people versus Edith Gonglo, but Edith Gonglo. But Leo, where you think this whole
ombudsman situation
violation is going?
So the first problem here, again, like I said earlier on,
I get the problem. So where are we going with it? Where
we're going? First of all, I will tell you that the issue. I want to correct something, Dennis, that somebody said that you posted. There is no law in the United States that bans people from driving with flip-flops or slippers. None. I can tell you that for a fact. The only thing it does is if you get involved in an accident and your whatever shoes, it doesn't matter if it's flip-flops or if it's boots. If the investigation find that you were driving unsafely because of the type of shoes you were wearing, you can be cited for it. But there is no law on the books that say it is illegal to drive with flip-flops. So I just wanted to correct that first of all. But let's come back to the ombudsman in terms of where we're actually going. The first thing I will say, Mr. Jad, the problem with the ombudsman office is, number one, limited resources and funding. For the whole Republic of Liberia Code of Conduct, we set up an office with one man. Inside right now, he in the Supreme Court from the previous case as we speak. How are you going to enforce an office that is going to work? The office was created with no framework for implementation. It was just created and said the ombudsman job that will oversee the code of conduct. Yeah, the ombudsman job, yeah, the ombudsman code. That's one. Number two, there's no enforcement power. In a country where you got a weak judicial system, right? You got a weak system as it exists. You create a position where serious cases like the how you call it, the legislature, you know, the impasse in the house, is sitting at this. How long has it been in court now? How long have we been going on this? So imagine an ombudsman taking violation of the code of conduct and sending the people, you know, where to go do what? So in my opinion, if you want the office of the ombudsman to be a very functioning one, first of all, it has to be well-funded to begin with. It has to have some of the best lawyers in the country, some of the legal minds in the country, because they will be the ones that when they come up with a case or with an opinion, and, you know, it has been well-researched, and, you know, well thought through, but also to come up for the ombudsman to say something, the type of investigation that needs to happen. It's not just, oh, somebody took a picture and send it to the ombudsman. The ombudsman, they need to investigate. They need to establish the facts. before coming up with a case. So for me, number one, the ombudsman office is underfunded or either not funded at all, no resources. Number two, no enforcement power. Number three, the ombudsman does not even have 10% of the capacity required to take on one case. So as a result of that, it becomes another office that nobody cares about because it's not going to go any further with the type of work that needs to be done. So going forward, if we're serious about these integrity institutions that we're setting up, the only way they can have autonomy is if they're well-resourced or whatever that is. They may not get money, probably that government minister can get him gas money to put in your car. Then you tell him, say he might go chase the same people. They may get to get small money, maybe finance got to set him up. Then he say he should go chase finance. So if you set up an agency of this nature, it has to be well-resourced and it has to be capacitated properly to have the ability to take on what is taken on. Outside of that, people will cite all kinds of violations before they almost even find out about it with the complaints when it comes to election or already it is very late.
So in essence, nothing can be done.
I don't think there's anything that can be done at this moment unless these critical issues are addressed. Because even the ombudsman come out right now and say, yeah, there are violation of the code of conduct, blah, blah, blah. We will send the people to the court. Before the people go to court, the election will be over. Whoever will be sitting in the Senate already. Before the court will come out later on to tell us, say, yeah, there was a violation. To do what at that point? Will you cancel the person from being in the Senate and kick them out of the Senate and start a by-election over?
Yeah,
So,
why not?
but then if you can do that, hallelujah to you. Then we start the process over. Then when somebody violate again, before they investigate, the person will be finished being better in the Senate already sitting. Then you kick that person out again because every time that's what we'll actually be on. So then it becomes a perpetual cycle.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, and we are between the headlines. We are discussing some key issues here tonight, starting with the issue with the Muslim holidays and all that. We talk about CMC, say, hey, code of conduct. Now, let's get to one of the guy, the way the guy can curse. But they say, somebody told me, say, but the guy cursing and the corruption, which one worse? They call him Prophet Key on the world stage, say he was in jail because of this. He used a false document to register. Because of that, he was denied. Now he has come to jail term. Mr. Dugley.
Oh, I think you're talking to me.
Yeah, then I followed this Prophet Key story very keenly, and there's just so much trouble, so much questions and answers. This is the justification I was given. In fact, I understood that Prophet Key, he was invited to the police headquarters without telling him what he was invited there for. And look, I think this is another malpractice here by the Liberia National Police. Prophet Key was disqualified about little over maybe going to 2 months now when he submitted those documents for his candidacy.
2 months, that's too much. I think less than that. I said less than that.
No,
Yeah,
probably
okay.
2 weeks. It's about 2 weeks now. Since
Okay, little over 2 weeks. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But what people are not saying, from what I gather, after Prophet Key was disqualified from running in this by-election, Prophet Key embarked on a movement of no vote, and his no vote was targeting Koga. And don't forget, Koga is the establishment candidate. And so anything that would threaten his candidacy, anything that would put any dent in his campaign, the establishment, meaning the Unity Party government, is going to make sure that they avoid that. And so from what I gather, I don't think this notion that he's submitting false documentation for his candidate is the main reason. I think there is a fear that being raised with this campaign that he embarked on, which is people not to vote for Koga. And they kind of saw the movement and the traction that movement has gained in Nema County. And so again, I think the government needs to answer that. There are questions that we need answers to. I don't think this whole thing has to do with only submitting false documents. I don't think so. And you know, it just brings to mind one more time how these guys, and I mean these guys, I mean the Unity Party government, how they are functioning since they ascended to national power.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
I'd like to come in.
Yeah, Jimmy, what I want you to come in on is if Prophet Key is being held for fraud, people will be asking, how about Dow Cooper, the inspector from the Commerce Ministry, who didn't attend the University of Liberia and through fraudulent means was there for graduation. The university investigated that and found him guilty. Yet, the police is not even calling him, but they are calling Prophet Key, who is already disqualified.
You know, it is clearly evident that this is not a police matter. If Prophet Key, as alleged, submitted fraudulent documents, that should have been forwarded to the Ministry of Justice for whatever prosecution that is will ensue. But it is not a police matter. He should have not been called to the police. That is not something the police should be engaged in.
The police is part of the Justice Ministry, right?
I agreed, but the police, if you look at the word police is to keep people in check in certain ways. This is not keeping people in check. This is a matter where an infringement of the law occurred. But this is not a police matter. It is a matter that has to be taken up by the Justice Department and pursued in courts. Exactly. It's not something for police to call somebody in. They don't have that jurisdiction at all. This is an NEC jurisdiction. They don't have that jurisdiction. So the fact that Prophet Key was called in, I think to Ducla's point, we need to understand why. What were the circumstances that provoked his being called in? I think it is a violation of our human rights when police simply call us in for questioning where beyond their own jurisdiction. If we do not use the police properly, they will become an enemy of the public because they are being misused, manipulated to pursue political opponents, and that should not be the case. I think the army has been avoiding this very carefully, and I think the police have to realize that they don't want to be trapped between political surrogates and the people. They are there to defend, to protect law, the property and the people. And if they are being misused to traumatize or to have people intimidated, it is very, very wrong. And I think we're bringing back things that occurred before that had terrible consequences later on in our.
Jimmy, I want to answer your friend's Dr. Sam Wallow. Did you say this, that the NEC should enforce the law? Or?
No, what the NEC should refer this to the Justice Department, and it should be arbitrated in court.
I know Sam Wallow another question.
It is not a police matter. That's what I say. It's not a police matter. It needs to be arbitrated in court. Mm-hmm. Okay, if he did submit these fraudulent documents, that's not a police issue.
Thank you. Leo, what do you think the whole thing is because the guy cursing? I mean, I can't even watch him. They curse so bad. Is it why? Or does it have to do with
I don't think so, because if that was the reason why, Giuliani did sue him for that very problem, and the case died somehow.
Yeah, I think Bushman Keita said no, y'all leave it, man.
My issue here is not even about whether the police arrested him or not, or whatever that is. My issue here is this issue of the absolute lack of communication about what's happening, especially when it comes to things like the arrest of a citizen, right? It can be the worst of us or the best of us. It doesn't matter because the law protects all of us, even the worst and the best. And if any one of us breaks the law, if the government determines or police determine that they broke the law, then we should go after them. But in this case, so Prophet Key was invited. Prophet Key went to the police station. Based on what we heard from himself, he was invited by Liberia National Police. He went there. They talked to him, whatever reason they deemed it necessary to have detained him. How is that not something the police could have issued a quick press release or some kind of statement on to clarify any doubt, miscommunication, or propaganda in the public to just say, hey, the police wants to make it clear, Prophet Key was detained on XYZ reason, or he was not arrested on XYZ, whatever that is, because then, Mr. Ja, it gives us what to be debating, right? What now they did it, or we would have been sitting here saying, is this right or wrong? But as we said, nobody knows exactly what transpired over there. The police has not provided, at least that I know of. If I'm wrong, you can tell me if I'm wrong, if something is out there. We still do not know yet if Prophet Key was arrested, why was he arrested? If he was detained, why was he detained? What is it? So we are basically guessing as we sit here. And this is where the government gets into serious problem, because then people create their own narratives and then float it out there. And then people get angry. Why are people running with narratives that are not accurate? Because this was a simple press release. Prophet Key was invited for, questioning by the police. After our questioning, we established XYZ, and on those basis, we are detaining Prophet Key for 48 hours, 24 hours, whatever that is. Let us debate it, but the police will provide clarity. But so far, it's hard for me to even engage this topic because I'm here struggling. Why did you detain him if you did? Why? And the police have never admitted that they detained Prophet Key. They never admitted that they arrested till now. We have no admittance. So all of what we are saying is based on what Prophet Key followers have said, because Prophet Key himself have not spoken to say he was ever arrested or detained by the police. He hasn't said a word about it. So it's only what people have been saying, that Prophet Key was arrested, he was detained. We have no official statement yet from any official channels to let us know what transpired in the situation.
And so do you normally hear from these people what's happened? Is this a rare case?
No, this is not a rare case. That's why I said the communications problem, because this is why we've seen, Mr. Ja, when things happen, people run with narratives that express like wildfire. And then when the official sources come on, people, they look like liars, right? And what went up first looks like the fact, whether it is the situation or not. But I think the police owes that responsibility to citizens. If you're going to seize a citizen's right, or seize a citizen's liberty under the law, then it is only fair for that to be communicated clearly so that people know, rather than leaving people to run and guess what's going on or what is not going on.
Jimmy, so with that understanding, is it fair to say that before I even ask you, let our audience know, if you want to be part of the conversation, please call 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403 pound. Because they say if EFBC doesn't come out, EFDC will take over, right? So what the former aide to President Weah, Carrasco, say the idea that President Bouaka is saying, hey, there are no political prisoners, we don't target our enemies, is false, because they are doing that. And so he said he was targeted after the demonstration. Now it's Prophet Key. People may think that, hey, the police is targeting enemies or the political enemies of the people. And we saw that with the at the Capitol building. Almost everybody they are calling for questioning is the one from the so-called minority side, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
What do you say about the Bouaka government when it comes to how it relates to opposition?
And this is my fear, that the police will be used as a political arm to affect political ends by this administration. It's going to put them in a precarious state. I've seen this happen before. Prior to 1980, in 1979, the police were looked upon as an arm of the state, when the April 14th happened, the rice they call them the rice riots, the police opened fire on innocent people, and they were considered um, people that they couldn't trust. And so when 1980 took place, several police people were effectively hurt and damaged due to that. I know the police are there to protect the people, but they have to be very careful to maintain a neutral position. As much as they have to follow orders. But at the same time, you cannot allow politics to infiltrate your ranks, where you start behaving as a puppet or a tool for any one political party. The people should be there for everybody, and they have to walk a very fine line. It is going to be challenging, but calling people in for matters like submitting documents that are fraudulent to NEC, you have them bring charges against them, and then after charges have been brought up against them, then you can incarcerate or ask a question to people. But simply to be the arm for political ends, I think is a dangerous step that the police may find themselves in if they're not careful.
Mr. Dukley, in the same NIMBA by-election, senatorial by-election, there were reports that one of the leading candidates, that Ide Gonglo Ware, used her sister identification to register. That case was forwarded to the NEC by MDR, and later on, MDR withdrew the case, say, forget it, we are all Nimba, we don't want to divide the county. And that was the end. No further investigation either by NEC or the police or whoever. So it's Prophet Key here. I don't even believe I was going to be calling him Prophet Key, because I don't like his politics, right? Is he being unfairly targeted here? On mute, please.
Yeah, I think Prophet Key is being unfairly targeted here, and the only reason why I think he's been targeted is because he's turned his fire on the establishment candidate, which is Mr. Koga. And so, how different is the complaint against Madam Banglawa from what Prophet Key did, according to the police own allegation that they made? So again, because of who Prophet Key is and because of what they see him doing, that's why they are doing what they did. So I mean, it's just been targeted unfairly. It's obvious.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, I want to also close on this one. So let me get your final thoughts on this one, because I'm really looking at to say, okay, what's going on here? Because if the law is not applied evenly, is the Bwaka government beginning to have a reputation of not being fair?
I think the Liberia National Police can do a better job with communication, right? I think that's the first major lapse. I'm going back to it, because when you leave these things open to interpretation, anybody can come back tomorrow and say, oh, this is not what we meant. You didn't hear this from us, or whatever that is. Really puts us in a very hard place. It also puts the government in a hard place, because we might have to make conclusions, and, just from what we see and what we can hear and what we can see, which sometimes may mean our conclusions may not be right, because only what we know and what we see we can use to try and discuss these issues. Compared to Mr. Jah, if we have all the narratives here, and then we have the official government statement here, to be able to look at it and say, okay, here's what we're hearing from the Liberia National Police, let's wait. If not, I think if there's not good communication at any level, it's going to make the government job really difficult. It's going to make the government unpopular, because propaganda has a way of taking seed, what are true or not true. And if the only thing you leave the media with to keep chewing on and talking about is the narratives that are out there, because the media has to report, whether you like it or not. They have to discuss these issues. So it's really in your best interest to put your official information out there so that it's discussing based on those merits. Or if you leave it, the media will go digging and find as much as they can find and be able to actually discuss it. So I think for me, number one, they need to do that. But number two, it shows you that the uneven nature, at least based on what we see on how these things are being meted out. Like you said, if you're going to go after Prophet Key for whatever he did, or whatever the forgery issue with NEC or so, then it makes other people wonder, what about the other cases that nothing has been heard about, nothing has been done? And people are rightfully asking those questions. They say, because some people are saying that because Prophet Key said no vote in Lima, that is the reason why. Guess what? That's the narrative that's going now. So if you don't say something, that narrative becomes what people believe it actually run with.
And my last question on this, and any of you can take it, is these elements, right? So Prophet Key was one of those who was insulting George Weah, former President Weah, the same way. And then at that time he was the darling of the Unity Party and other opposition leaders. Now he has turned fire on them, and now it's different. Another person is Yeke Koluba. Yeke Koluba was against the President Weah and the CDC government. Now he's on the other. In fact, he's going with the CDC now to pay his dues, and he is CDC regalia. Now he's in Nimba campaigning with Madam Gonglo Ware because he want to be against the Unity Party candidate. I mean, what is giving rise to the popularity of these kind of characters? When they're on our side, we clap. And not to mention even the man Costa, who when he curses this way, everybody on that side like it and go on the other side. So there is a new wave of character like this coming up and being very popular. What's responsible? Let's take 30 seconds each. Duke, you start.
Yeah, this is all part of the new trend we've seen in Liberia. And if you remember, Dennis, what's his name? Abraham Delon said something. I thought it was very telling. He said, people always talk about Yeke Koluba insulting and being very, very rude. And he said, no. He said, what you see Yeke Koluba doing now, he did the same thing with George Weah. It's just that he changed to Joseph Boakai because Joseph Boakai is in power. He said, Yeke Koluba has not changed. It is us, the politicians, that have changed. In other words, he was actually acknowledging that what Yeke Koluba is doing is that Yeke Koluba is actually right. It is they, the politicians, that are wrong because Yeke Koluba has not changed from what he's been doing. It is they, the politicians, that have changed. So it's all about political interest. If you are in opposition and you see the guy bashing the government of the day, of course you will want to cheer him on. Now the same thing, the shoe is now on the other foot. Now you want to say, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why did you not say that when you were cheering him on? So it's just a matter of, it's a political game that they are playing, and Yeke Koluba is just saying it like it is.
Jimmy?
Yeah. Let me address that. We've seen a lot of cross carpeting, as is known in the political arena. People jumping from one party to the other, vacillating, and our people have to be aware that a lot of times when you see people, they're on one side today and they're on the other side today tomorrow, it is because they don't have an established
ideology
course or ideology. They don't have an established course, so they vacillate between these things. They are not genuine. You cannot one day be pro black guy, and then the next day you castigating him, and the other day you anti Weah, then the next day you hailing him. It does not jive. It's not coherent. And our people need to understand that people who do this are being politically manipulative. That is what's going on here. It's political manipulation. I'm going to say and do the things that will favor me to you, but not necessarily because I'm of certain conviction.
Your thought, Jimmy. Let me bring in our first caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Oh, well, this is Wanda Freeman calling from Minnesota.
Anthony Freeman, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I want to speak on the issue of the police.
Okay.
Okay, so if I heard you right, and which I'm, pretty much familiar with, is that the police conduct is pretty much the same under WIA regime. Is the same unprofessional conduct of the police is what you are seeing under Boaka. And if you want to extend it, it's probably what you saw under the Ellen regime and even do. And so maybe we should ask ourselves, is there something wrong with the people or is there something wrong with the police in terms of the structure? I would argue that people in law enforcement should not serve at the will and pleasure of the president. Because that is the problem. So if your daily bread comes from serving at the will and pleasure of the president, and at any time that daily bread can go away from you, it's obvious you're going to be biased. So we see a situation where you may be changing regime, but the police behavior remains the same because the structure that they are operating in remains the same. And that is, once they serve at the will and pleasure of the president and the ruling party, they will have to kowtow to whatever they say. So you see unprofessional policing moving from one regime to another. I bet you, if you change this regime today, you put a new ruling party in, that very police that is catering to this current regime will start catering to the next regime. So it's a structural issue. And we need to start addressing Liberia issue from some of the structural fundamentals instead of thinking that it is a matter of personality. It's not personality. It's this way the police is structured, the way the law is written. Definitely, because the president has a last word in terms of the daily bread or whether or not the police director can keep a job or not keep a job. So as a result, they will always bend over backward to accommodate the person who can take away the daily bread. So I want to stop on that note.
Thank you. Thank you. The lawyer has spoken. Gentlemen, thank you for tonight. We'll go around the room for your closing. Let me start with Leo Johnson. Your closing.
Thank you, Mr. Jai, and thanks. Good to see you, Duke, and good to see you, Jimmy, as well. I think most of the things we're discussing comes down to the fundamental issue here. Our failure to invest in basic education is at the bottom line of all of this. Because whenever people are exposed, there's something about experience. When you've been exposed to a certain kind of experience, you cannot unexperience it. Like it's like it forces you to aspire for something better, because it forces you to know what type of question to ask when these type of things happen. But our failure to invest in education over and over has led us to the place where even when something happened, Mr. Jai, you sit right now on this radio here or on this show, and you say one thing today, you show up to Relay Market tomorrow, they will tell you the direct opposite in interpreting what you just said. Number two, our inability to even vet information, right? Our inability to do the simple things in our society has led us to the point where we're having conversations about tribalism still. We're having conversation about religion. We're having conversation about, nobody knows the laws of Liberia. All the laws we can be here quoting, nobody knows where to find them. There's no organized place today right now that you can go and just pull down all the laws, all the rules of Liberia. No. So what laws are we talking about people should be governed by that is not accessible to them? When bills are passed and printed in the hands bill or whatever, where do you find them? If you're not connected, like Mr. Dennis Jawa connected, you can get access to all of them, people's name for us to read. It's impossible. Where do you find it? Then come to talk about it being written in English. So you got maybe, I would say probably 20% of your country can rewrite and understand proper English. You got a country where majority of the people outside of Monrovia don't hear any of this stuff. So what laws are we quoting here when we say the laws must be enforced? The ombudsman will enforce the code of conduct. Like they're the people in Monrovia, outside of Monrovia, even in Monrovia, we cannot access it. Dude, when I tell you right now, please go and pull me down all of the bills that have been passed in the last 3 years and please show it to me. Where will you find it? So we only hear about the popular one, the one that become contested. They come up. We hear about it, but all the other ones today, article, I'll close on this. Article 97 of the Liberian Constitution says, no member of the People's Redemption Council can ever be tried in any court in the world, anywhere on earth, for overthrowing, they use the word overthrow in the Liberian Constitution, for overthrowing the legitimate government of President William Aratobo, including anybody that was acting under their instructions for committing murder, for confiscating people's properties, for all of it. It's still in at Article 97 of the Liberian Constitution in 2025. So that means anybody who's acting under the orders of the PRC, even if you took babies and put them in the well and bury them, it's not a crime. You can never be tried under any laws according to the Liberian Constitution. For that to still be in our constitution today, and we beat our chest and say we are abiding by the organic laws of the land, that means we got super citizens in Liberia. There are certain people that are enshrined in the constitution that you can never try for the crimes that they committed. So again, I come back to it, and I've said this before. I know Mr. Jack can say my opinions and I can be too strong. The Liberian Constitution is the problem. It is a corrupt document. It's probably one of the most corrupted documents since 1985 or 86. When President Doe and the junta surrounded people with guns and told them what to write or what to change that they didn't like, and our constitution was drafted under those circumstances, we have never mustered the courage to take it and really look at it. Even if it were written properly in 1986, from 1986 to 2025, no review. The country has gone through a brutal civil war, right? Where our entire society broke down, and we're trying to reconstruct our society on a constitution from 1986. That's why I say we are developing a country backwards. We're not going forward. We're going backwards to the times instead of going forward. So for me, the fundamental problem of education will lead us to unearthing these things and looking at them with a very crucial and critical eye.
Thank you. And I'll go to Mr. Dukley. But talking about education, the last time I was using this, sorry about that picture. The education you're talking about, these are your classrooms.
And that's and that is my fundamental argument.
Here's your library.
Exactly.
You know.
No, Mr. Jada, not true. We got one modern library in Pinsville. Gotta show it to.
Yeah, So but then the people in Monrovia see the opulence.
Exactly.
But Leo, to your point, the library is only in Monrovia.
Yeah, because at the first ever one, we got to do proof of concept.
What happened with the other people in the interior?
You want me to go build it in Bogonima where we ain't got road to carry the saying, yeah?
No, it can be in Banga.
No, we have to start in a place where the donors.
But right now, this is what we have. There's a school in Sino.
Well, that's why you need to be a superintendent, Dennis.
And the Southeastern has produced the highest number of presidents in the history of our country. These are the conditions of the schools there.
There you go.
All right. Dude, you're closing.
Yeah, Dennis, thank you very much for the show. And I want to say it's nice to see my friend and brother, Mr. Leo Johnson. It's been a while, and it looks like Jimmy was having fun in LIB. It's good to see you again, Jimmy.
I had a beautiful. There's nothing like being back in Liberia.
I envy you. No,
why your light just dim.
we have 2 more minutes to close.
So Leo said something that I have been saying on this platform forever, which is our constitution needs to reflect our new reality. Until then, we are doomed for whatever we put our hands in. So, education is going to be the key for anything we do. And by education, I mean from the ground up, no exception. So I just hope somebody somewhere is listening to us. And I think everybody knows that we mean well for Mama Liberia, and so we need to have a document that will reflect our new reality so that we can start a new, a new course of our lives. You know, I mean, everything Liberia is a complete mess. When you say, people think that you are just a naysayer, you always criticize, but what is there not to criticize? Almost everything. I mean, you know, somebody said, I don't know what it, Dennis, is the old become new or whatever? Nothing has changed. Everything is cosmetic. Everything right now is cosmetic. Joseph Walker, all the 45 years he's spent in the government that he didn't get rich. This is his opportunity. He wants to enrich himself before he goes. That's all he's doing. Nothing more.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Wow.
And Jimmy said, if visiting Liberia, he think all the talking we're doing here, there's no impact. But Jimmy, don't talk that one. Because
I'm not gonna say that, but I wanna say something. You know, Liberians are special people. But we have not identified how we can move to the next step. We are satisfied with doing things the way we do it. I've seen that everywhere you go in LIB. There's a certain thing. There's a certain condition you have to meet. There are certain ways. We are totally satisfied with how it is going. All your as you guys intellectualize and pontificate, the average Liberian doesn't see it that way. They see it as a way, whatever is existing, they're gonna deal with it, and they continue like that. How do you revolutionize people thinking that instead of me getting this $5 here, I would believe that this has to be done the proper way? How do you change that mindset? What is required to make people believe that if we stop doing the things that we do the way we do it today, it's going to be better for our children? That is the message. That is the change that Liberia needs. But today, it's just easier to continue the status quo. And that is what is being perpetuated. Just continuing doing the things we did before the way we did it. And very little changes there. So we need a shot in the arm. We need somebody, some people to say no. Let's change this. And I really believe I'm going to go out on a limb with this proposal. We need to extend our citizenship to include people who of a different mindset, so that it will help to break us out of this nucleus that we find ourselves in. We need to bring people in who will challenge this status quo, because none of us are really challenging the status quo.
Thank you.
It's the same old, repeatedly. So I think we need to extend our citizenship to include different ideas and different kind of people.
Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for the night. I want to thank our viewers for watching. At this time, we're going to close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.